Have you ever chased something only to realize it was nothing more than a shimmering illusion on the horizon? Imagine a young man named Adrian, who from childhood was enamored with the idea of fame. In his dreams, being recognized meant that his voice would echo through time, that his actions would transform lives, and that the world would stand in awe of his every word. But as he embarked on his journey, he soon discovered that the dazzling spotlight of public recognition came with a cost that was as heavy as it was unseen. Adrian's story began in a small town where he was known for his kindness and the way he lit up every room he entered. In those early days, fame was a distant, magical promise, a reward for hard work and talent. He dedicated countless hours to perfecting his craft, writing his thoughts on paper, and dreaming of the day when the world would see him for the brilliant soul he believed he was. As he grew older, his talents caught the attention of local audiences. His words resonated, and soon his name was mentioned in gatherings, celebrated in community events, and gradually carried beyond the borders of his hometown. Yet, as the recognition grew, so did the subtle, creeping emptiness within him. The more he was celebrated, the more he began to feel that each accolade was a transient mirage, a fleeting shimmer that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Every compliment felt like a drop in an endless ocean of expectations. With every public recognition, Adrian's inner voice grew louder, whispering that the fame he craved was not the sanctuary he had imagined. It was in fact a heavy burden that demanded constant performance, conformity, and the suppression of his true self. In the midst of his rising success, Adrian encountered a mentor, a wise professor who once shared with him the poignant wisdom of Friedrich Nietzsche. He explained that fame is like a mirage, a beautiful yet deceptive vision that draws us in only to leave us parched in the desert of our own expectations. This idea struck a chord deep within Adrian. The professor recounted how Nietzsche believed that true value is found not in the external validation of the masses, but in the internal journey towards self-mastery and authenticity. For Nietzsche, public recognition was a shallow accolade that often masked the profound loneliness and isolation that lurked behind the curtain of celebrity. As Adrian's popularity soared, so did the psychological cost. The constant gaze of the public began to feel like a weight on his shoulders. Every mistake was magnified, every failure scrutinized. The applause, once a balm for his soul, started to echo as hollow noise, amplifying his inner doubts and fears. He found himself living in a state of perpetual performance, a role that demanded perfection, but left little room for the natural, messy beauty of being human. It was as if he were trapped in a gilded cage, where the bright lights of the stage masked the creeping shadows of self-doubt and isolation. One fateful evening, after a sold-out performance, Adrian retreated to a quiet park under a starlit sky. In the silence of that night, with only the gentle rustling of leaves for company, he began to question everything. He recalled the days when he simply wrote for the joy of expression, when his words were a reflection of his inner truth, rather than a performance meant to please an audience. He remembered the heartwarming moments of genuine connection, when he spoke with friends and strangers alike, and how those moments filled him with a quiet, profound happiness that no amount of applause could replicate. In that moment, he realized that the pursuit of fame had led him away from the true essence of his being. Adrian's inner journey took a profound turn as he began to explore the psychological underpinnings of his desire for public recognition. He discovered that his need for fame was intertwined with an unspoken fear of insignificance, a deep-rooted belief that his true worth could only be validated by external accolades. This realization was both painful and liberating. He began to see that the voice of the crowd was not a measure of his value, but merely a reflection of societal constructs that held no inherent power over his inner self. He recalled Nietzsche's notion that we must create our own values, that we must forge meaning from within, rather than rely on the ephemeral praise of others. In the solitude of his introspection, Adrian started to experiment with the art of detachment. He deliberately stepped away from the relentless chase for approval, choosing instead to nurture the quiet moments of self-reflection and creativity that had once defined him. Slowly he learned to find solace in the simple act of being, writing for his own soul, speaking with authenticity, and reconnecting with the inner joy that had been buried beneath layers of external expectations. His journey was not easy. There were moments of painful realization, moments when the allure of fame beckoned him back, whispering promises of grandeur and validation. But with each step he grew more resilient, more anchored in the knowledge that his true worth was independent of the fleeting lights of public acclaim. As the days turned into months, Adrian began to notice a remarkable change. The weight of fame started to lift, replaced by a deep sense of inner freedom. He found that he was no longer tethered to the constant need for external validation. The applause became less important than the quiet, heartwarming connection he had with himself. He started to live more fully in the present, embracing every imperfection as a part of the beautiful tapestry of his existence. The journey, though fraught with challenges, revealed to him that the most valuable recognition was the one that came from within. A recognition of his own growth, his own resilience, and the quiet joy of living authentically. One evening, as he sat by a gently flowing river watching the reflections dance on the water, Adrian felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The river, with its endless flow and gentle persistence, reminded him that life is not about reaching a destination of perpetual acclaim. Instead, it is about the journey itself, the quiet, steadfast moments that build our character and reveal the true essence of who we are. In that moment he understood that fame, with all its glittering promises, was nothing more than a mirage. It could never truly satisfy the hunger of the soul or fill the emptiness left by a life lived for others. In the following weeks, Adrian continued to delve deeper into the wisdom of those who had come before him. He discovered that many great thinkers, including Nietzsche, had long warned of the high cost of public recognition. Fame, they argued, was a double-edged sword that not only elevated us to dizzying heights, but also exposed us to the inevitable pain of isolation and misunderstanding. The more we pursue external validation, the further we drift from the authenticity of our own inner lives. Adrian realized that the pursuit of fame had lured him into a life of constant performance, where every action was measured against an external standard rather than the quiet intrinsic worth of his own being. He began to see that the true measure of success lay not in the glittering awards or the adoration of an unseen crowd, but in the depth of personal fulfillment. The accolades that once felt so essential now seemed superficial in the light of his newfound understanding. The admiration of others, he learned, was like a transient glow, a fleeting light that flickered briefly before fading into darkness. What mattered most was the steady, unwavering light of self-awareness and inner contentment. Adrian started to embrace this perspective with an openness that surprised him. He began to value the small, uncelebrated moments in life, the quiet conversations with friends, the solitary hours spent in creative expression, and the simple pleasures that brought genuine joy without the need for external validation. In his quest for this inner freedom, Adrian also encountered moments of deep vulnerability. There were times when the echo of past criticisms and the relentless pressure to perform threatened to pull him back into the old patterns of reaction and self-doubt. But each time he remembered the lessons of his mentor and the stirring words of Nietzsche, who had urged him to create his own values and find meaning in the authenticity of his own experiences. With each setback he grew stronger, his resolve deepening as he learned that the only true recognition worth pursuing was the acknowledgement of his own inner truth. One crisp autumn day, while walking through a park ablaze with the vibrant colors of falling leaves, Adrian met a kindred spirit, Elena. She too had once been caught in the whirlwind of public recognition, chasing a dream that left her feeling hollow and disconnected. Their conversation flowed naturally, filled with shared stories of struggle and awakening. Elena spoke of the relentless pursuit of accolades that had left her exhausted and emotionally barren, of how every compliment seemed to demand an even greater performance. As they talked, Adrian realized that their journeys, though different in many ways, were united by a common quest: the search for a life of genuine meaning, free from the relentless clamor of external expectation. Together they embarked on a journey of self-discovery, learning to navigate the delicate balance between ambition and inner peace. They explored the idea that true fulfillment comes from within, a discovery that was both liberating and deeply inspiring. Elena shared stories of how she had once chased fame like a mirage, only to find that every step closer to it left her feeling more isolated. Adrian recounted his own experiences, the way he had once believed that recognition would fill the emptiness inside him, only to discover that the applause of the crowd could never silence the quiet longing of his heart. In their shared vulnerability, they found strength. As their friendship deepened, Adrian and Elena began to see that the high cost of public recognition was not a price to be paid, but a burden that could be lifted by returning to the essence of who they were. They practiced mindfulness, dedicating time each day to quiet reflection and introspection. They learned to celebrate small victories, to find beauty in the mundane, and to cherish moments of solitude where their true selves could emerge without the pressure of performance. Slowly, the relentless chase for fame faded into the background, replaced by a profound appreciation for the simple, heartfelt moments that made life rich and meaningful. The more they embraced their inner journeys, the more they understood that fame was merely a mirage, a fleeting illusion that promised much, but delivered little. What remained was the steady, unwavering light of authenticity, a light that could not be dimmed by the criticisms of the world or the empty praises of the public. Adrian discovered that when you live true to yourself, you attract people and experiences that resonate with your inner truth. The recognition that once seemed so vital was now replaced by a deep sense of contentment, a joy that sprang not from external validation, but from the rich soil of self-acceptance. In the gentle embrace of autumn's chill and the soft glow of twilight, as they sat side by side on a weathered park bench, Elena and Adrian reflected on their journeys. They spoke of the cost of chasing illusions and the incredible liberation that comes from releasing the need for public recognition. They realized that the world in its neutral state holds no inherent value until we assign it meaning, and the most profound meaning is found not in the approval of others, but in the quiet celebration of our own lives. Their conversation meandered through memories of past disappointments, tales of failures that had once felt like crushing defeats, and the small, tender moments that had sparked hope amidst despair. Each story was a testament to the transformative power of embracing one's true self. The realization dawned on them that the journey to inner freedom is never about renouncing ambition or talent. It is about reclaiming the narrative of one's life and choosing authenticity over the hollow promise of fame. In that moment, as the night deepened and the first stars began to twinkle in the vast expanse of the sky, they understood that nothing and nobody could affect them again, because they had finally learned to master the art of living for themselves. And so, with hearts lighter and spirits emboldened, they stepped forward into a future defined not by the fickle adoration of the masses, but by the steady, enduring light of their own inner truth. The journey continued, and with every step, the mirage of fame faded further into the distance, leaving behind the rich, nourishing reality of a life lived authentically, where every moment was celebrated for its inherent beauty and every challenge was met with the unshakable strength of a soul that had finally found its way home.